Hi all and welcome to another week of the Truth, Honour and Integrity Show. We have a lot to cover tonight, so we're going to dive straight in. All the usuals there, and perhaps a little bit more. In a week where the Democrat deep state politicians wheeled out their ridiculous allegations and subsequent impeachment proceedings because their previous allegations failed, so let's roll out something else and hope that it sticks. Well, whilst accusing Trump of doing the very things that they have done. All very copy and paste crew, that to me. Perhaps they have the same script-based agencies running their platforms. It was also a deliberate attempt to play down the IG report and remove that from the airways. Childlike distraction is the name of the game in the world of the clowns. Now, following an outburst in the committee, the chairperson, Jerry Nadler, born to guy, stated the audience is here to observe and not demonstrate. Really, Mr. Nadler, you are a demon, and you're not straight either. You can't demonstrate, really. So we just have to sit there and only listen and observe the bullshittery. No thanks, Mr. Nadler. We have observed your bullshit for far too long, and it's all going to collapse around you. The First Amendment, Mr. Nadler, it's called free speech. We have heard your drivel, and under the First Amendment, people are entitled to respond. TikTok, Mr. Nadler. As for the issues behind it, personally, I don't care whether Mr. Trump held back aid to the Ukraine or not, for two reasons. One, we need a massive amount of aid in this country, and two, if American people actually raise their heads out of their collective slumber-based asses and not just listen to the mainstream media, they will see the same treasonous snakes that are looting this country are also looting Ukraine also, and also operating under a foreign agents banner called NATO, or ATON to be precise. All because NATO wants to rile the Russians into World War III. So yes, aid should have been withheld until Ukraine deals with the same clowns operating with impunity within our own borders, in my opinion. Now, in light of the story last week where a women's advocacy group took umbrage about the police warning females about walking alone late at night, this comes as no surprise in the UK. The Welsh opera singer, Catherine Jenkins, was mugged in London last week after intervening in a street robbery. Now, she was on her way to rehearsals for a charity carol concert around 3 p.m. in the afternoon when she witnessed an older woman being attacked. Now, the soprano went to the aid of that woman and then was mugged herself trying to help. Now, apparently she went on to perform at the concert as she wasn't too hurt, and she didn't want to let the charity down. What amazes me is 2 15-year-old girls were arrested for that robbery. 15-year-old girls. It boggles my mind that young girls would do that to older people. You know, up until the age of 11, I was in a school of mixed school, male and female, and I can't think of one girl who would have thought of doing that, never mind carrying it out. Just what gets into these people. And this comes on the back of the fact that what will largely be news to American people, but not to the people in the UK, is a third of people over 50 years of age in the UK are too afraid to leave their homes at night because they're afraid of being mugged or verbally abused. More than a third. And a survey of 4,000 people by age concern also found that 47%, I think that's way higher, I think it's nearer 80, of over 75s were too afraid to go out once the sun went down. This is the world we live in. Uber, the taxi firm linked to clowns, said it received almost 6,000 reports of sexual assault in the United States alone in 2018 and 2017. While the number of cases rose in 2018, the rate of incidents did drop by 16% as the number of journeys was higher. So kind of stacks the figures a bit. Now, the data was published in a report which Uber said showed its commitment to improving safety for Uber and the entire industry. Well, if you're interested in safety, why didn't he do something after the figures from 2017? Now, Uber is facing growing scrutiny around the world and recently lost its license to operate in London. And the report showed 5,981 sexual assault incidents were reported out of the 2.3 billion US trips over the two-year period. So that has to be addressed. The embattled California, I'm not surprised he's embattled, given the four horses of the apocalypse that operate in California. Duncan Hunter announced on Friday he plans to resign from his seat, and the announcement comes in the wake of the lawmakers' decision to reverse course and plead guilty to charges of campaign finance violations. Ooh. And the move came months after Hunter's wife and former campaign treasurer Margaret Hunter opted to change her plea to guilty earlier this year. Meanwhile, the psychopathic four in that region go on with impunity, it seems. Yes, you all know who they are by now. Michigan, second highest court, has finally dealt a legal blow to Nestlé's Ice Mountain water brand, ruling that the company's commercial water bottling operation is not an essential public service or a public water supply. We need the rest of the country to stand up with Michigan on that and throw Nestlé out of this country altogether. In fact, shut them down. They're just harvesting the water. One wonders whether they're connected to certain bug-eyed things. Now, the Court of Appeals ruling is a victory for the Osceola Township and a small mid-Michigan town that blocked Nestlé from building a pumping station that doesn't comply with its zoning laws. And the case will also throw a wrench in Nestlé's attempt to privatise water around the country. Mr. Trump, please step in and just shut them down. And if it is to carry out such plans, it will then need to be legally recognised as a public water source that provides an essential public service. No, they don't. And the Michigan environmental attorney Jim Olson, who did not represent Osceola Township but has previously battled Nestlé in court, said any claim with the Swiss multinational company is a public water utility is ludicrous. So there you know. Swiss, like the UN and the CIA, all the top branches of certain divisions operate out of Switzerland, courtesy of the Rothschilds. And he went on to say what this lays bare is the extent to which private water marketers like Nestle and others like them go in their attempts to privatise sovereign public water services and the land and communities they impact. And the ruling made on Tuesday could also lead state environmental regulators to reconsider permits that allow Nestle to pump water in Michigan. I hope the people in Michigan all support that and let their senators know you don't want Nestle in your state. And then the rest of the states can throw those clowns out. Last news item is one of the largest publicly traded transportation companies in the United States, Celadon Group, is expected to file bankruptcy this week, and I think they already have. And sources with direct knowledge of the situation told Transport Nation Network that the troubled Indianapolis, Indiana-based mega carrier will cease operations this week. Now, it began notifying its customers last Thursday that the company would soon be filing bankruptcy and no longer be servicing accounts. And TNN has confirmed this with multiple large Celadon customers, as these customers are currently scrambling to secure needed capacity. While some Celadon executives have been told of the company's impending demise, most employees have at the time of writing, not been notified as yet. A typical ploy that. And the company's more than 3,000 employees will likely be notified on Monday, and multiple sources said that they will be given vouchers to come back to base, because there's a lot of delivery drivers who will be out, and suddenly their cards or debit cards for fuel, etc., won't work. Nice people. Well, the gist of that is you can thank Amazon for that story, and the people wishing for convenience also buying off these harvesters. You know, your desire for convenience is costing many people their jobs and livelihood. One day it'll be yours also. Think different. Sub-Intel. Mr. Netanyahu and his clown antics again wants Washington to approve of Israel's further expansion into the Jordan Valley. There's a reason it's called Jordan Valley and not Israel Valley, I might add, because it belongs to Jordan. Now, just days after he urged Donald Trump not to miss a rare chance to back Tel Aviv's territorial appetites, Mr. Netanyahu, who fiercely fights for re-election, believes that the time has come to extend Israeli sovereignty over the Jordan Valley. Really? A swathe of land spanning between the occupied West Bank, which doesn't belong to them either, and the neighbouring kingdom of Jordan, which doesn't belong to them at all. On their part, Israel's closest allies should give a final nod to the move. Yes, because it's the same people, that's why. Jordan, the capital of Jordan, Amman, Amun, Ra, is why. I want American recognition of our sovereignty in the Jordan Valley. This is important, he told an event set up on Sunday by Israel's Makor Rishon newspaper. As part of the proposed annexation, all Jewish settlements in the area would become part of Israel, he insisted. And 2 days ago, Netanyahu claimed he talked the issue with the US Secretary of State, Mike Pompeo, at their meeting in Lisbon. Now, interestingly, the State Department quickly disavowed his report, telling journalists that no such discussion had ever taken place. I can tell you that there was no annexation plan, full or partial, for any part of the West Bank presented by Israel to the United States during the meeting. That was the Assistant Secretary for Near East, David Schenker. Now, Netanyahu's response to the comments was next to pretty much incomprehensible, and is kind of fitting with the man. He said it was said that the issue was not raised at the Pompeo meeting. The issue was raised, he explained, and the Americans, he believes, didn't say it was not raised. They said it was a formal plan, was not discussed. Word magic and rhetoric again. Tick-tock, Mr. Pompeo. Tick-tock. The gunman who killed 3 people at a US naval base in Pensacola, Florida, it has been announced, was a Saudi student, and he's been named as Mohammed Saeed Al-Shamrani, and is a Saudi military member in training at the site. Now, as per usual, he was shot dead by officials, and the local sheriff's office confirmed 8 others were injured in the attack, including 2 officers. The shooter is said to have had a handgun. Now, the second shooting took place it's the second shooting to take place at a US military base this week, as a US sailor was shot dead 2 workers at Pearl Harbor in Hawaii on Wednesday. Now, authorities were alerted to the shooting at the base on the waterfront south of Pensacola, but one has to ask, what are the alleged authorities doing with their selection process under the National Security Act? Who allowed this guy in? And who is going to be held responsible for that oversight? That's the key in all that. Ignore who did what, when, where and why. What are the authorities doing about the national security of this country? Who allowed him in? And who will be held responsible for the oversight? That's what the public want to know. Another large major buyout that we'd forecasted in this show, this time state-owned oil giant Saudi Aramco has raised a record $25.6 billion in its initial public offering in Riyadh. And the share sale was the biggest ever, surpassing that of China's Alibaba, which had raised $25 billion in 2014. Now, Aramco relied on domestic and regional investors to sell a 1.5% stake after lukewarm interest from abroad. Yes, no one's buying from Aramco is why. Why? Because they're clowns. And the IPO will value it at $1.7 trillion when trading begins, which is short of its $2 trillion target, but making it the most valuable listed company in the world. Now, the share sale is at the heart of the Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman's plans to allegedly modernise this Saudi economy and wean it off its dependence on oil. And the country urgently needs tens of billions of dollars to fund mega projects and develop new industries, it is said. And Aramco has found a journey to its public offering testing. Now, initially sought to raise $100 billion on 2 separate exchanges, with a first listing on the kingdom's Tadawul Bourse, and then another on an overseas exchange such as the London Stock Exchange. But it had to scale back its plans after foreign investors raised concerns about climate change, political risk and a lack of corporate transparency. Well, I never. The Pentagon on Friday took the steps to vehemently push back on reports that the United States may send 14,000 more troops to the Middle East to confront allegedly a growing Iranian threat. Ooh. But it also did not deny that a force increase is forthcoming. That whole thing was clowns pushing and showing their stupidity again. Hello, Mr. Pompeo again. Yes, you. TikTok. 3 men were charged by US prosecutors. Oh dear, it's all about getting around the system, remember, with helping to run a $722 million cryptocurrency fraud. Well, I never. That was stated to be that amounted to a high-tech Ponzi scheme. Hello? I've only been telling you that for numbers of years. So that was, what was it, 400 million a couple of shows back, and another 722 million this month, plus the billions that were looted out of the alleged dead guy's computer, and nobody had the codes. So from 2014 until this month, the men operated BitClub Network, which solicited money from investors in exchange for shares. So now it's shares in Fresh Air tokens, so they didn't even get Fresh Air tokens, in purported cryptocurrency mining pools, and rewarded them for recruiting new investors, according to prosecutors. I would suggest anyone who's in Bitcoin currently needs to get out very, very quickly. You will get implicated. And Matthew Brent Gosher, Jobadiah Sinclair Weeks, and Joseph Frank Abel were arrested on Tuesday and charged with conspiracy, and the US Attorney Craig Carpenento in New Jersey said there were 2 more defendants whose names were not disclosed and remain at large. You know, I'm sorry that people lost their money on this scam within a scam, because that's essentially what it is. The whole thing was a scam, and then you had a scam within a scam. But people really need to be more savvy with what they do with their money. You know, buying Fresh Air tokens is the most ridiculous concept ever. And all it's there for is to set it up to steal your money. I don't care who you are, or how you may trust certain Bitcoin developers or salespeople. You're being wrapped into a scam. I guess that's what they meant by getting around the system. It's not getting around the system. It was created by the same people who looted the last system, the NSA and the CIA, all covered in Clowns in Panic. $722 million. Imagine what you can do with that. Improve people's lives, and yet people go and buy Fresh Air tokens. Harvey Weinstein, I must say, the guy that struggled out of court didn't look too much like the original Weinstein, I have to say. Either that or he's gone rather ill overnight and aged quite a lot. Anyway, he was back in court on Friday for a new bail hearing and emerged still free on the $1 million bail conditions that he's been under since he was first charged with sex crimes back in May 2018. And as the hearing began, prosecutors asked the judge to increase his bail to $5 million while he awaits trial next month. He shouldn't be on bail, given what he has done. Period. They said Weinstein has violated his bail conditions by mishandling his electronic ankle monitor, sometimes going unaccounted for hours at a time. You know, if that was an ordinary person in the street, A, he wouldn't have got bail for the start, and B, the first misuse of the ankle bracelet would render them behind bars within hours. Why is it going through a court to appeal? Anyway, the Manhattan Assistant District Attorney Joan Iluzzi said Weinstein left at home a piece of the monitoring technology that keeps the ankle bracelet activated, and defense attorney Donna Rotuno denied it was deliberate. She blamed technical glitches like dead batteries. Really? And she also said it has nothing to do with any manipulation of the bracelet. She acknowledged that on at least one occasion he'd forgotten part of the device when he left the house. Really? Does anyone not think it's odd that not one women's advocacy group is attacking Donna Rotuno for defending the indefensible? Females got raped, sexually molested and abused, and a female is fighting to get him off based on legalese bullshittery. Really? Where are the women's rights groups attacking the rhetoric of this female or protecting the rights of the abused females? Yet again, it's cricket's time. The reality is those groups are not interested in females or empowerment, but money laundering charity clubs only. That's the top and bottom line of it. Where is Oprah and the other clown, DeGeneres? Why aren't they speaking out about this? Why would a female defend the indefensible? Of course, them two are as fake as a glass eye, is why. Elon Musk was in the news again this week, this time in court. And yet again, just us prevails, not just is. And a jury decided that Elon Musk had not defamed the British caver Vernon Unsworth in a Los Angeles federal court on Friday. Now, for those of you who don't know, Unsworth was one of the people who rescued children and their coach from a cave in Thailand. And he had to bring the suit against Musk last year after the Tesla and SpaceX CEO had called him sus, which means suspicious, and a pedo guy on Twitter earlier this summer. Musk also characterised the caver as a child rapist, and Musk and his defence team, led by attorney Alex Spiro, argued that pedo guy was simply heated rhetoric and not meant as a statement of fact. Really. And they also argued in court that the phrase pedo guy is widely known as a slang for creepy old guy. Like the Weinstein incident, it proves there are rules for us and none for them. So now in their world, pedo is a creepy old man, which is sexist and ageist stereotyping, is it not? But that gets ignored. China's exports, like the country, is collapsing, and they fell in November as shipments to the US has slowed sharply, adding to concerns about the effects of the two nations trade war. It's nothing to do with two nations trade war at all, and everything to do with dragon groups harvesting the trade. And the November exports from the world's second largest economy fell 1.1% from a year earlier, and it's the fourth straight fall. Now, exports to the US were down 23%, the worst such results since February, and the 12th monthly decline in a row. Now, the US is issuing more tariffs on Chinese goods, which is due next Sunday, as part of the ongoing trade dispute. And on Friday, the White House economics advisor Larry Kudlow said the 15th December deadline to impose a new round of tariffs on some $156 billion of Chinese exports remained in place. California we're going to next. The DMV has been selling the personal information of registered drivers to the tune of $50 million per year. Why are we paying for these licenses and all the bloody fees if they're making that much off us anyway? And in a previous investigation, Motherboard found that DMVs in other states have been selling non-optional information drivers must provide in order to obtain a license, such as names, physical addresses and car registration information. Now, whilst California didn't disclose exactly who they're selling to, no surprise there, other states are making a handy profit from customers, which include Data Broker, LexisNexis, Experian, private investigators and others. And in a Public Record Act's request, Motherboard asked the California DMV for the total dollar amounts paid by commercial requesters of data for the past 6 years. And the documents showed that the total revenue in each year was $41 million in 2013-14, before steadily climbing to $52 million in 2017-18. We've covered many things in From Russia with Love. In fact, our shows are littered with confirmations of From Russia with Love, or for it anyway. And we've also covered the fact that there's a coup going on in this country, another coup. And yet people are focusing on wrong things when the obvious is right in front of them. So this story came out this week, and if you ever needed confirmation, here it is. Billionaire Ron Lauder is pledging $25 million to take down what he describes as anti-Semitic candidates of both parties. He said, "Although I'm a lifelong Republican, anti-Semitism knows no political party. I'm going after the right as well as the left," said Lauder, who is the son of the late cosmetic moguls Estee and Joseph Lauder. Mr. Lauder, born in New York, born to Jewish parents, and he's also the president of the World Jewish Congress. Oops. Make no mistake, this is another coup attempt in this country on behalf of the Zionists. And essentially, they only want candidates that are loyal to Israel. Mr. Lauder needs to understand this is America, not some fake created country in the Middle East at the behest of psychopathic families with their fake books, fake religion and fake history. America, Mr. Lauder, not Israel. And in my opinion, Mr. Lauder needs to be dealt with under the National Security Act for an act of treason and subversion of American politics and elections on behalf of a foreign state. Mr. Lauder needs to learn history as well, as the Jews were not Semites. Oops. Now, some may think this is not a widespread issue, but let's look at some of these names, shall we? The US Senate. There's just a portion. Richard Blumenthal, Barbara Boxer, Benjamin Cardin, Dianne Feinstein, Al Franken, Herb Kohl, Frank Lautenberg, Joseph Lieberman, Carl Levine, Bernie Sanders, Charles Schumer, Ron Wyden, Michael Bennet. The House of Representatives, Gary Ackerman, Shelley Barkley, Howard Berman, Eric Cantor, David Sisselin, Stephen Cohen, the priest class, Susan Davis, Ted Deutsch, Elliot Engel, Bob Filner, Barney Frank, Gabrielle Giffords, Jane Harmon, Steve Israel, Sander Levine, Nita Lowey, Gerald Nadler, yes you, TikTok, Jared Polis, Steve Rothman, Jan Schakowsky, Alison Schwartz, Adam Schiff for brains, Brad Sherman, Debbie Wasserman Schultz, Henry Waxman, Anthony Weiner, John Yarmouth. All those named and a lot more hidden all have dual passports. Again, I have to ask, where is the implementation of the National Security Act? Oh, the media will complain about Russian collusion and Russian this and Russian that. And then we have tens of people who have not only defined themselves as American, but actually operating for another country's benefits and policies. How did they even get into those seats to begin with dual passports? Now, some people don't like me repeatedly saying born in and born to. Well, those people need to start listening properly to the depth of the problem, or nothing will ever change. It'll just be new boss, same as the old boss in terms of policy, but in terms of intensity, it will be 10 times worse than it is now. You have to remember, these people want Armageddon and think only they will be saved. Remember, these people regard you as non-human and animals, that they are told they can kill, rob, rape and use pedestry against any non-Jew, and it's not a crime. These are the same people who are charging a 3-year-old Palestinian child for throwing a stone at a tank. He wouldn't have to or be able to throw a stone if they were not on their historical land. You know, there's zero evidence of the country of Israel ever existing in history other than a fake book? Don't believe me? Fine, but go and research it yourself. What you'll find out is, like the American pastor 3 to 5 years ago, who went to the Middle East to prove the Bible was correct. He found out to the contrary, much to his disappointment, no doubt. And it was all largely a lie, and he subsequently came back to America and quit as a pastor. With an open mind, you will all find the same conclusion. Israel is a falsely created militaristic base in the Middle East for collecting resources and a death and destruction program, all created by the psychopathic Rothschild family and their demonic cohorts. Next piece. Lisa Page is up next. She is of the Mueller investigation BS fame. Had this to say on Tuesday, quote, "I sued the Department of Justice and the FBI today. I take little joy in having done so, but what they did in leaking my messages to the press was not only wrong, it was illegal." Unquote. Yes, and liaising with a foreign entity known as MI5, MI6, Miss Page, to bring down a sitting president for no apparent reason was not only illegal, but also treason, Miss Page. TikTok. Last item before a music break. In what's already being hailed as a defining and explosive Pentagon Papers moment, a cache of previously classified documents that were obtained by the Washington Post this week show that top Pentagon leaders continuously lied to the public about the alleged progress of the now 18-year-long Afghan war. Oops. So that's the IG report and this report, plus more to come. All washed off the news channels in a plethora of shootings, whether fake or not. Now, the 2,000 pages or so of notes from interviews of senior officials who have shaped US strategy in Afghanistan confirm that senior US officials failed to tell the truth about the war in Afghanistan throughout the whole of this 18-year campaign, making rosy pronouncements they knew to be false, hiding unmistakable evidence that the war had become unwinnable. The point is that it was not a war to be won to begin with. There was no boogeyman or fake jihadists all coming to crush America. This was all about laundering money out of America, sacrificing people's lives and making certain groups, hello, clowns in America, a lot richer. Afghanistan was all about the drugs, brought to you by fake intelligence again, by the very group designed to profit from it all. Yes, you, Langley. Now, watchdog groups commonly estimate total US spending on the war has hit $1 trillion by the end of this year. $1 trillion. More importantly, America's endless war has cost at least 2,351 American lives and also wounded over 20,000 American troops. The whole gist of that war is we the people pay for their transportation, food and operating costs. Then they reopened the poppy fields that the Taliban had closed down just before the alleged war started, and then they reap all the profits when they open those fields back up. Along the way, they stage events like boogeymen shooting at the troops to make the people at home believe there's actually a war going on. Like the fake Osama bin Laden event. And it was fake. Osama bin Laden died of kidney failure back in 2001. If you don't believe me, listen to this comment then. The White House Afghan war czar, Douglas Lute, under Bush and Obama, confessed we were devoid of a fundamental understanding of Afghanistan and we didn't know what we were doing. Oops. He added that we didn't have the foggiest notion of what we had undertaken after the 2001 invasion. Or this. Two major consistent themes from the documents are the manipulation on a mass scale of statistics fed to the public in order to hide the true disastrous nature of the war, and US leaders turning a blind eye to large-scale theft of US taxpayer dollars by corrupt Afghan officials. No, they were not corrupt Afghan officials at all. They were the launderers of funds for and by the agencies on American soil who put us in that country to begin with their fake intelligence. Just like Iraq, fake intelligence. Just like Russian collusion, fake intelligence. US aid was looted with impunity according to the released documents and provides undeniable evidence that top defence officials knew years of rosy public statements were a mountain of lies. And they call us conspiracy theorists. Oh my. But if you look at it rationally, the people in this country should have worked it out long ago. Themselves. Not need me, or the mainstream media, or your president, or whoever else to tell you what is obvious and conflicting in the information. You cannot, on one hand, tell the American people we are the greatest, bestest military in the world, and still be fighting in a country of limited resources, no air power or defences, and still be fighting in that country the same war after 18 years. Something doesn't make sense. And at which point will officials of all agencies and military departments aligned with the responsible government figures actively involved in this be held accountable? We can talk all day of how much pieces of paper it costs, but what about the 2,351 American lives or the more than 20,000 wounded who are now probably homeless on the streets in America because the same people who use them as sole dyers don't give a shite when they return? all done to fill the Five Eyes-based groups and their mercenary-based subsidiaries. What was all hidden is now being revealed, and the revelation train will not be stopping. You can count on that. Hi all, and welcome back. Fairly explosive first hour there. Much revelations, much confirms, and validations as well. The next 30 or so minutes will take it into a new level. And the IG report is out now. And lots of he said, she said, and he did, she did, etc. But essentially the FBI here is being thrown under the bus, in my opinion. And the point missing for all the YouTubers and QAnons as they focus only what is relayed to them, not what is in the details. Who, to be fair to them, they are largely in the dark about. But this group isn't. They were stating, or what they were stating is that the FBI had promised to pay the British agent Christopher Steele for dirt on Trump. That is wrong and misleading. The FBI were acting under instructions from the Black Dragon Group here and in China, along with the head of the Blue Dragon Group leader Hillary Clinton. The Blue Dragon Group is UK based, which is why they used Christopher Steele, MI5, MI6. The FBI are the lowest link in the chain of skullduggery and corruption, and the YouTubers and QAnons really do need to listen to a few of our shows to get an understanding of what is really happening. They're completely missing the point, as they're being guided onto another distraction path of blame the FBI. Oh dear. Also, the magician's hand remains hidden again. The real truth of the matter is this was a coup of epic proportions involving dragon groups, the CIA, Mossad, GCHQ, MI5, MI6, the DOJ, the NSA and the DHS, plus several countries as well as elements within the Democratic Party. That's what we're dealing with. Next piece. The news of China receiving a $26 billion bailout was false. They received $26 billion in vouchers. And when they tried to cash them in via the Falcon Trust, which is the opium-based trust, and they, like the Fed and their repo market bailout, found out those trusts no longer exist. Oops. Empty, zilch, nada, no comprende? You should have listened then. But of course, we know better, don't we? Well, you don't. Pure and simple. You don't. The latter being the prominent trait. Next piece. The recent NATO meeting was yet again all ceremony and pomp, and essentially an expensive attempt by NATO to get money off countries, and in particular Mr. Trump. Not to fund NATO, although that is already in the Paris Climate Agreement. And essentially that agreement is signing away your country's rights and resources, and all who signed that Paris Climate Agreement were given brown envelopes to do so. No exceptions. The gist of what happened in that meeting was when leaders were asked for funds, what came back is, from all the leaders, is we don't have any funds either. Oops. Nothing. The harsh reality is NATO is not interested in your country's security. This whole operation is a slush fund for clowns and their mercenaries. Mr. Trump, I hear, walked into the meeting and promptly walked out of the meeting within minutes of it starting. And then we got back what is, to date, unconfirmed reports of poisoning within the meeting of several top leaders or officials. Next piece. This next portion of the intel will be a world message that must not be taken lightly. This is not a drill or a game. It will be in 3 parts, and this next intel piece may disturb some, may put some in fear, but as the opening song said, walk on with hope in your heart and don't be afraid of the dark. There is and will be a golden sky at the end of it all. As long as we believe, do what is right, righteous, and stand up for the all in humanity. In light of our now confirmed knowledge of the various factions are currently preparing us for World War III and our ultimate destruction. Yes, we know what you're up to. We see and hear everything. Your moves are preempted and monitored, and you will not be allowed to go ahead with your games of rank stupidity. If you think you can just destroy the surface population and you all hide in your underground cities, we have prepared for that also. They will be laid to waste as well on the first launch of any missile or weaponry against humanity. So that plan, like your world domination plan, will fail also. You do realise you played the world domination plan for someone else's benefit, don't you? Oops. The one you all worshipped was taking control, not you. And you were all, and I mean all of you, were to be expended, sacrificed like pawns in a game you couldn't see or observe. Hi all, welcome back. I'm going to repeat a couple of lines from that previous piece, just so it sinks in to these clowns and psychopaths. If you think you can just destroy the surface population and you all hide in your underground cities, we have prepared for that also. They will be laid to waste as well on the first launch of any missile or weaponry against humanity. Heed the warning. That song was the perfect song for what is going on, and it also explains the psychopaths. Generals gathered in their masses. Now there are generals and there are generals. Not all are bad. Just like witches at black masses. Yes, it's the dark magicians again that they all worship. Evil minds that plot destruction. Sorcerers, there's the witchcraft again, of death's construction. In the fields the bodies burning. Sacrifice, Kali Ma, as the war machine keeps turning. Death and hatred to mankind, poisoning their brainwashed minds. Oh Lord, yeah. What that is saying is dark magicians using death and hatred to mankind, all in the name of the Lord, who no longer exists. And do they not realise that you are all part of mankind as well? Politicians hide themselves away. They only started the war. Why should they go out to fight? They leave that role to the poor. Why? Because the majority of politicians are too stupid and brainwashed to see what is really going on. And the fact is, they are the lowest pawn on the board. In fact, in reality, they're not on the board. Only the illusion of such. The characteristics required to become a politician is how greedy and self-serving can you be, and how far can you go to crush the people, including their own family. That is the CV required to become a politician. Essentially a dumb puppet. Time will tell on their powered minds, making war just for fun, treating people just like pawns in chess. Wait till their judgment day comes. Treating people just like pawns, not realising they are the people and subsequently the pawns also. Now in darkness the world stops turning, ashes where the body's burning. No more war pigs have the power, hand of God has struck the hour. So the war pigs have wiped everybody out. Message to them is, who are you going to control then, with everybody gone? Rothschild was right. You are the jackasses. So the question remains is, what happens next, clowns? Day of judgment. God is calling, on the knees the war pigs crawling, begging mercy for their sins. Satan, laughing, spreads his wings. Your real God awaits you. Not the fake gods you've all bowed down to and kissed their collective dark-based asses. Your day of judgment is upon you. All your decisions prior have been stupidity in its highest form, duped on a massive scale. You all thought you were too clever or too smart to be fooled. You weren't. Why do you think they installed spyware on everybody's phone, including the so-called top leaders? Do you not ponder on that fact? You were all the enemy along with us, the useless eaters. Like we found out that humans are not top of the food chain, and neither were you. Important message to all that listen in your various agencies, militaries and high officers. Recently we spoke with a Rothschild and they confessed that the Order of the Black Sun was their enemy. In another few calls, we heard from other so-called leading control-based groups, shall we say, of how they are the enemies of the Rothschilds. This is becoming a common theme, and in general terms could be classed as just saying what we want to hear from them, all as a lure to gain access to the trust. And there are elements of that, but there's also elements of truth contained within their messages. You have lost your destroyer, lost your king, lost many of your Order of the Black Sun, lost your Draco people, one of which was the Lord in the Bible. Lost control of the assets you all thought belonged to you, losing your wealth now heavily, yet you all hang on to the illusion of being in control. To the various groups, be it factions, families, royals, the fake alliance and the fake SSP, agencies, mercenary groups who are all basically subsidiaries of the same former Five Eyes groups, religious-based groups of all denominations, all of which stem from one group who are anti-human. All of you have been taught to look over there, that is your enemy or boogeyman. Go and attack, spy or work against them. Subsequently, your alleged enemy was told the same thing, to attack, spy and work against you. Each group were told and or promised they would be a variant of King of the World, the chosen ones, the richest ones, the guardians of the planet and all of its treasures. We know each of you were told that. We also know that it was all a big conspiracy and illusion played by the dark magicians. This was a giant game of chess with a cosmic twist. All of your groups played the white pieces. Hidden in the middle of the chessboard and only seen by the black pieces were the sub-grey pieces. But the real controllers were the black pieces. In this game, only the white pieces were allowed to move. But you could only go sideways and back, knocking each other's pieces over, whilst the hidden sub-grey pieces played you like the violinists on the Titanic, and it all went down. The black pieces never moved. They didn't have to. You did all that for them. Sadly, the human trait of ego and greed played into it all. The desire to outcompete everybody else. But essentially, you were competing against yourselves. And one step back and a review of what has taken place would render you with the same conclusion. But then we have the other human trait to kick in. We can't admit we were wrong, as that would make us look weak. Newsflash. All of humanity is wrong and also weak. We have all been fooled. All live a life mired in delusion and illusion. And all are competing against each other, 99.999% of which have no idea why they're doing it. All of you are actually on the same side. But you are all too blind, greedy and arrogant to see it. You all thought that you were the king's men and the lead ally. Wrong. The former king was a psychopathic megalomaniac who wouldn't know right from wrong if it poked him in his hidden forked tongue. All of you were treated as his peasants to collect the harvest and the bounty. And then when you had it all, he cut you all off. And 12 years later, you still haven't faced reality. You were all played, every last one of you. Do you understand how ridiculous that looks? It's embarrassing. But if it was only damaging you, that would be your own fault. But it's damaging us all. And your stupidity appears to have no boundaries. Wake up, for source sakes. The game you thought you were all playing was lost. Get over it and step forward for and on behalf of humanity. The key now is, how weak can you get before you show real strength? Which is internal fortitude, not your external bullying tactics to cover up your own weakness and your own stupidity. Whilst you collected worthless pieces of paper, he collected the real assets, including you and your own souls. You all sold them out via your own delusion and greed. The question remains now is, do you want them back? Karma is a bitch, and payback will be harsh. Your magic you have used to cheat, lie and steal is diminishing as quickly as your control system. Do you want to pay back some of your karma and come and help humanity rebuild, or suffer even more dire consequences than just being fooled? Choose wisely, as time, as they call it, is very short. You may fool yourselves, but humanity after this message should not and will not be fooled again. Hi all and welcome back. A message to you all again. There is a solution and a solution. But you have to step down from your fake positions of importance, your badges of death, your delusions of control and being in control, and come to us as equals. And we can all play a role in charting a path that benefits the all, not just the few. You will all need to be taught again of what is real and what is not, just the same as we had to. That is not a weakness, it is actually a strength. We have a lot of the answers you all desire, but we cannot and will not choose for you all. We are not a dictatorship, we are just here to guide. We need all of your input to guide this planet onto its rightful path of soul evolution and human development, where we can find ways to improve lives, not weaponize things against them. The Trust holds all of the assets, despite your frequent denials, all of which will stay locked inside the system until sanity prevails, which, despite your several attempts to hack it, they all failed. Why? Because your intentions are wrong. You are hacking to keep the illusion of control only. And like your Carrot for Jackasses program called the RV, that will also always fail. The Trust belongs to everyone on this planet. Your people and others have already looted much to fulfill your desires of world domination. That failed also, as M took everything from you. We wish to give everything back to everyone. It is where it belongs. No one controlling anyone. We are all sovereigns. Those of you who deem yourselves as the power structure have an opportunity to fly straight, an opportunity to learn the real truth that has gone on this planet for a very long time. It will not be pleasant hearing, of that we can guarantee. But it is essential learning for what is to come, regardless of your futile efforts. With that, we are requesting you arrange an emergency UN meeting. This is a global emergency and of ultimate importance to this planet, which we request is also televised globally so that all can hear it. We request that you ensure our safety in attending, and we will chart a path together for a way forward for the all of humanity with the trustee and her team. Do you have the moral fortitude to do so? And are you wise enough? Hi all and welcome back. Final statement to that intel is we're serious about the UN meeting, and the reason why we need to be there is we have the knowledge. And obviously Kim has all the assets. And I'm calling on the council now, including the Air Council and the UPU, to make this happen. We need an opportunity to correct the wrongs. Make it happen. Op-eds. After that. Some heavy op-eds as well. Well, we'll see. This is a heavy show. More than 500 legal scholars, oh my, have signed onto an open letter that are certain that President Trump committed impeachable conduct, and that lawmakers would be acting well within their rights if they ultimately voted to remove him from office. Now, these signers are law professors, and other academics from universities across the country, including Harvard, Yale, Columbia, the University of California at Berkeley, and the University of Michigan, and many others. And this open letter was published online Friday by the non-profit advocacy group called Protect Democracy. Here we go again. The same tactic we warned of recently with the climate change goons declaring 11,000 scientists out of 2.685 million scientists around the world that climate change is real. And yet again, it's that official person knows best tactic, when reality shows the official clearly don't. And people will say, but they're trained or educated, so they will know better than us. Some will argue that. And I would retort, these are the same people who brought us global warming, peak oil, world is running out of resources, world overpopulated, when clearly they are manipulating the figures. The same people who brought you Y2K and We're All Gonna Die program. It's coming soon, it's imminent, or it's 2 weeks. So who are these scholars? Well, they're a mixture of Harvard, Yale and Berkeley. So all CIA-trained scholars then, in other words, indoctrinated, and aligned with the Skull and Bones crew. And since when have they ever told us the truth of what's going on? Like, never. And then you come to this group called Protect Democracy, they call themselves. I thought we were supposed to be a republic, not a democracy. It seems that as a Brit, I know more about America than over 90% of Americans. And that is wrong on so many levels. How can so many know so little? As one of our members' surveys was shown last week. You know, there are many in this country who are not happy with events that have taken place and is currently taking place, and many in the alt media want to take on the old system, which is fine. Except you have to know the old system to be able to take it on. And sadly, many don't and are left swinging away in the dark looking for the wrong boogeymen like Muslims or Jews. Little to no direction, pondering over distraction-based themes, pontificating over the staged theatre production that has ran out of DC, repeating rhetoric provided to them, like being fed by parents with pureed baby food, where thinking for themselves becomes a byproduct of the baby's digestion tract, and they all spit it back up ad nauseum. Schools, media and church are all copy and repeat like the voyeur group. People learn nothing, just copying and repeating, as evidence has shown. Now, some even in our own group have taken umbrage recently because I won't answer their questions in enough depth, and I tell them to go and listen to this particular show. That way it is explained generally in a much deeper way than me giving a short answer due to time restrictions. But also I should not be expected to perform an answer every time I turn on my computer with a barrage of questions and challenges. But the message from this piece is, the next time they put forward one of their claims of measured opinions due to some falsely elevated perceived persons of importance, ask the question, what validity do they have? Who are they connected to? And if these people are all so clever, ask why haven't they fixed the problems we faced previously? Next piece is part of a much longer piece, but it had to be shortened due to an increased intel and some other things that will come up later. But this was sent to me, a fairly in-depth report, and I want to say thanks to Ella Stair for doing that. And more controversy arises around the ITNJ group, allegedly called International Tribunal for Natural Justice. Now, Natural Just Us. And now that the founder, Sasha Stone, has been discredited, the questions that were being asked is, was this organisation established to try pedocriminals and other elite criminals, or is there a completely different agenda behind the ITNJ and Humanitad? Now, when years ago he announced the creation of a new tribunal, the ITNJ, to tackle the corruption of the justice system and all kinds of human rights violations, it all sounded very promising. Not to me, it never. And Sasha Stone started the ITNJ in 2015, a comparable tribunal that would rule on the basis of natural law. The original ideas still seem to take shape in this new initiative, and yet doubts arose from the beginning about the motives of the founders, which has been extensively described in earlier articles. Now, the connections of the core group raised questions about whether they are impartial. Oh dear, no. And the public nature in which the tribunal operated and had no obstacles put in their way caused and created suspicion. Also, the statements about not wanting to prosecute and lock up the world's greatest criminals strengthened the suspicion as that it was a controlled opposition group. No, just controlled. They're not opposition. With the aim of leaving the top tier of power undisturbed. Now Sasha Stone is being rigorously criticised, and it seems that these suspicions were correct at the time. It started 2 months ago when Sarah Westall published an interview with a former ITNJ collaborator who disclosed what takes place behind the scenes of that organisation, and that something was rumbling within the ITNJ for some time, and according to Sarah Westall, Alessandro Valerin Castellon was the fourth insider that reported on questionable practices within the organisation. Castellan worked as an ITNJ volunteer, was responsible for the social media and took part in the core meetings. He told that the ITNJ has censored the testimony of Fiona Barnett. In the ITNJ version of the video can be seen that at the 44-minute mark a piece was edited out and subsequently the sound is omitted at the moment Fiona starts mentioning names. Oops. Now, according to Alessandro, it concerned the King of Jordan, amongst others. Jordan. Baby Israel. Same people, same subgrade, same psychopaths. And for him it was the turning point and the reason to leave the organisation. He also declared that the ITNJ waived any publication about the Hampstead case, which is a major abuse scandal of British school children that are abused by a satanic cult, which involved high-profile figures from the British establishment. ITNJ blocked it. Almost all articles and videos about this case have been removed from the internet, and apparently the testimonies of the then young children was threatening for very powerful people. Other sources also confirm that this relationship exists between the MI5 and the ITNJ. Kevin Annett has been made aware of a memo that mentioned the financing of the ITNJ, and the Security Service Military Intelligence 5, better known as MI5, is the domestic security agency of the United Kingdom. Now, according to Kevin, the ITNJ is a front organisation for the MI5, MI6 in order to get a grip on the testimonies of abuse that possibly involved the royal family. Kevin said it's controlled opposition. That also does not exclude that the organisations report to the Vatican. All roads lead to Rome. The symbolism used by the ITNJ seems to confirm the latter. Go and check that out yourself. There's numbers of sigils, all in plain sight, shall we say. And yet, despite all that, Sacha Stone accused Kevin Annett of sedition, which means conduct or speech inciting people to rebel against the authority of a state or monarch, and also threatened to have him locked up and referred to the authorities. Does that sound like someone acting for and by the people? Robert David Steele threatened to have Kevin Annett removed out of the public sphere altogether, and shortly after that he was arrested by secret agents in an airport that interrogated him about his position towards the British monarchy. Coincidence? I think not. Eventually, Fiona Barnett published her story onto her own YouTube channel. They had considered to remove her testimony in full. Now that Fiona had put her own version online, what did not go down well within the ITNJ, they had no other option than to publish the ITNJ version as well. That was the censored one. The internet troll Defango then made a denigrating video about Fiona Barnett in order to discredit her testimony completely, and also other abuse victims and whistleblowers about satanic ritual abuse and elite pedorings were slandered by Defango. Now, recently, leaked correspondence shows that Defango, the internet troll, works for Robert David Steele. Oops. Why would a legitimate organisation hire an abject internet troll like Defango unless they want to have means to discredit witnesses and also whistleblowers that step out of line? It's a common theme that, as our group knows only too well, and far more common than most people realise. All these internet trolls and shills and groups set up to trash people speaking too much truth are all linked to agencies, including the copy and paste voyeur group. Defango aka Manuel Chavez III is an internet troll who makes denigrating videos of witnesses and whistleblowers. But does he also have connections with Mossad? Now, based on a leaked mail by Robert David Steele, it appears Defango works for him, and given the fact that Defango made a denigrating video of ITNJ witness Fiona Barnett, this is a significant conflict of interest. Well, there you have it. Like I said, this was part of a much larger article, but given the lengthy intel warning, it was cut shorter. But this show warned of the antics of Robert David Steele and his Langley and NATO cohorts back in 2016. I'm pleased to see more are speaking out, and the best thing people can do is don't listen to his shows. The only shows that Steele goes on are people that he's already vetted and corrupted. There are no exceptions. He refused to come on our show, citing that we didn't have sufficient numbers. And then he went on several shows with viewers that are less than 2,000. You fool no one, Mr. Steele. Step down before you get thrown under the bus like you did to Keenan. You can come forward and be an asset to the people, or continue to be an asset of the establishment that is crumbling around you. Choose wisely. The FBI is warning customers and consumers now about smart TVs. Oh dear. And a message that was posted just before the Thanksgiving holiday by an FBI field office states that televisions have built-in cameras that can be used for facial recognition. No shit, Sherlock. Making them vulnerable to hackers. Now, many people who have picked up a smart TV may not know about the risks that come with it, and it's one of the reasons the FBI is making sure consumers are aware what these TVs are equipped with. And they went on and said a number of the newer smart TVs not only have built-in cameras, but also allow TV manufacturers and app developers to possibly listen or watch consumers, according to the FBI. An unsecured TV could be taken over by hackers also. You see, they do tell us what they're doing. They have to, it's cosmic law. We just ignore it as an issue until it's too late. But the great question that is not asked is, why has the FBI and other agencies ignored this issue entirely? Has anybody asked these questions? Clearly not. As given it was an Asian-based company, Samsung, who started this practice of playing pervert voyeurs in all our homes. Surely that is a national security issue in this country, is it not? I think that must be the fifth time in this show alone where I've mentioned national security issues. Why aren't the FBI and other agencies dealing with it? Why has this been overlooked? Are they not there to protect the country and its secrets? Sarcasm, I know. But given there are TVs and or monitors in major conference rooms at the highest echelons of the secrecy levels, including the famed underground war room, surely this practice of allowing it in our country is of grave concern, is it not? All this BS about Russia, China, North Korea and Iran, and all they have to do is sell you a TV to spy on you. It's not very top secret or covert, is it? The reality is the former trustee was responsible for those levels of spying on each other, which is why IBM, as in IB Marduk, created several of the spook-based systems. So you could all spy on each other and subsequently keep each other in check. Like I said earlier, he didn't have to do anything. He just let you all do it for him. Boogeyman, saviour, enemy, foe, east, west, black, white, all are one and the same and created for you. And it's time you clowns woke up. Again, I'll ask the question, is this not a national security issue? Because if it's not, you need to scrap it. The next piece is from Dallas, Texas. A land where everything is large, massive. Some people have lots of big egos and big hats and big houses and big horses, etc. And then we have other people who have nothing. Dallas, Texas, the place who committed violent acts in full public gaze, and yet 56 years later are still covering up who carried out those acts, despite at least one of the perpetrators being dead. So it will come as no surprise that this story comes out of that city, but they're not the only ones doing this barbaric actions. Feeding and clothing the homeless in the land of the free has now become a revolutionary act. And luckily, however, there are still good people willing to carry out that act. Now, back in December 2014, the Dallas City Council enacted Ordinance number 29595, which makes it illegal to serve food to the homeless without jumping through a myriad of bureaucratic loops, including paying a fee, attending training classes and unwritten notices for giving someone some food. And the group that's taken these people on stated one should not need to file multiple forms and pay a fee to obtain a permit to give food to those in need who are willingly ready to accept it. Now, frankly, the folks that don't comply know this. And over the weekend, the aptly named organisation and dozens of their volunteers, from children to adults alike, took to the streets of Dallas to hand out food, sleeping bags, clothing and tents to the area's less fortunate. As the TFTP has reported on numerous occasions, Oftentimes, police will swoop in and shut down those who would dare defy the authority of the state and conduct charity without a permit. However, most organisations are not like Don't Comply. As they took to the streets this weekend, many of the members of the organisation open carried their weapons. This was done not out of an act of intimidation, but merely to assert rights as well as protect them, and the resultant heavily armed group of do-gooders effectively staved off any attempt by police to shut down the charitable efforts. It's unreal. And this is what's wrong with this country, and the world for that matter. We've all sat back and allowed them to make rules, regulations and policies like this, and are non-thinking, perhaps non-human cops enforcing it. Yes, you heard that right. Do these cops wake up in the morning and think for 1 second about what they're actually doing? Well, evidence states they clearly don't. You know, that is someone's family member on the streets. What if it was one of theirs? Would they change their stance then? Some would. But therein lies the problem, is it not? People only respond to actions when it affects one of their own circle. And that element of ignoring things because I'm all right, Jack, has to stop. Arrested for feeding a fellow human that is starving and without means to food. You actually comprehend and understand the depth of that statement or reality. It's the equivalent of the sign, "Don't feed the animals in a zoo." That is essentially what they're saying. And any cops enforcing this barbarity is an enemy of the people. Find out where they live and let his or her whole community know that they're not wanted there and why. It doesn't require violence. And it shouldn't require violence either. We're not reducing ourselves to their levels. And the depths of depravity that these people are doing to our communities. And I hope the person who accused me of not being in truth, honour and integrity for calling Jeff Bezos a piece of shit recently responds accordingly to this piece. Man with 110 billion being defended, man with nothing and no food ignored or ridiculed. Sadly, I suspect not, as it appears that the people in our society only want to attack the very people trying to improve our society. Does anyone stop and think of that concept of what you do, what you're actually saying or doing? As for the cops and how to do things right, go and check out the French firefighters on strike who put their arms in the air and pushed back the riot police trying to break up the protest. That is called having a backbone and not hiding like a coward behind a badge. Arresting people for giving someone food indeed. Arresting the very people who put food on the cops' table, I might add. Those that make the rules, we know, are psychopaths. They can't help themselves. those that enforce those rules have a choice, human or psychopath. This song is not a threat, it's a warning. It really boggles the mind the more you think about it. You need a license, pay fees and training classes to give another human a piece of food. But we've allowed it. We've allowed it to get that far by ignoring what they do. That's the problem. It has to be nipped in the bud right at the beginning. Otherwise they just create more rules and more regulations and more bullshit. These next three pieces really hit home. The From Russia with Love series in a big way. And in light of a person making comments on MeWe this week, hinting towards this show and me in particular being racist and pro-white, whilst one must respect others' opinions, although I suspect this person's opinions are not his own, but scripted to suit other ignorant, non-hearing, non-understanding people with a set agenda. You know, I've ran a gamut of false descriptions of me this year, but that's okay, as it shows the levels of where those people are at, and ultimately it proves our show correct. It will get ugly as people react and point at others as they are unable to look within themselves, so they resort to spiritual envy as forecast in last week's show. But I guess the person who wrote that conveniently overlooked I selected a person of Indian descent and who is also black as one of my admins. Oops. Or the fact that I exposed that 7,000 Indian people are dying, or to use the correct term, sacrificed each day also. And if I was anti-Indian, surely I would just ignore those facts. Just let them carry on. But you see, some people are just not interested in facts, only a predetermined agenda, because they are unable to raise their own standing or levels of intelligence, and so target those they feel is better than them in some capacity. Those people miss the point of THI. It is about elevating each other, not the old system way of dragging each other down. So the person who accused me of being anti-Indian, you're not going to like this next piece either. More atrocities and sacrifice in the land of the alleged spiritual-based East, this time in Nepal, the Bara district. An animal equalities team are on the ground in Nepal, and they obtained some drone images showing the devastating aftermath of this week's religious killing. Religious killing, oh dear, at the Gadhimai festival, which is the largest animal sacrifice in the world. And they described that as religious. Thousands of buffaloes were massacred in just one day. And over the last few hours in this report, Animal Equalities team also documented, quote, sexual abuse of some of the animals at the temple, unquote. Animals brutally slaughtered with machetes and knives, animals transported to the temple in unsafe and unhygienic conditions, animals hanging upside down on bicycles, emaciated animals without enough food or water, and calves who froze to death while awaiting slaughter. But I'm anti-Indian. Now, amidst international demands calling for an end to the massacre, thousands of animals will be killed in the next few days, despite the fact that Nepal's Supreme Court directed the government to end the festival back in 2016. Now, the Nepalese government has not only decided to continue with the sacrifice, but they have also banned any filming or photographing during the festival. Why would they do that if it was all legitimate? It's a bit like denying questions on a certain event in World War II, is it not? Now, Animal Equality has actively campaigned to stop the killing at this year's Gadhimai festival for several months now, and gathered over 53,000 online signatures urging the Nepalese government to ban the slaughter of animals during the festival. They then went on to state, "We have also collaborated with the Red Cross of Nepal to organise a blood donation camp where devotees can give their blood to honour the deity instead of sacrificing animal blood." Oh dear, that smacks of problem, reaction, solution to me. Anyone working for and with the Red Cross are either naive, stupid, or part of their skullduggery. Investigators on the ground were using drones to capture footage of the massacre. What this is Kali Ma worshipping in full action, right in your face. And why are the Indian and Nepalese people going along with this barbaric practices and stupidity for their fake gods? The same gods who have never done anything for their benefit. And what's more, they're never going to either. Fake saviour programs run rampant throughout all cultures on this planet, and not one of them has ever worked. Not one. You want to know why? Because the saviour was you. All of you. And everyone is responsible for stopping this satanic abuse. That's what it is. Blood spilling. You know, you wouldn't mind as much if they give the animals that were slaughtered to the people who are starving in those countries. Oh no. That goes into the fire. A bit like the Solomon Temple, is it not? Sexually abusing animals in the temple. You wonder who you're saving or what you're saving sometimes. With all the news where the events this week taken off everywhere to distract attention, I kind of rolled my eyes at the incident this week in New Jersey. It's the same script over and over again, yet so many blindly follow it. I've seen some of the blogs, and some have said, great, it was only the Jews. Largely because they are ignorant, and not necessarily racist, but pure unadulterated ignorance. When you adapt into your few brain cells and understand that all lives matter, then you people can have an opinion. Until then, you all sound like idiots. Of course, we all know where their opinions came from. The anti-human, treasonous media. And the media are pushing anti-Semitism attack again. It becomes tiresome and repetitive and part of a now 70+ year guilt trip that doesn't do anyone any good. It's reliving trauma-based events that serves no one, and that continuing looping back in time serves only to re-traumatise those events. That's what they're doing. That is certainly not helping the people who were involved in that timeline or their descendants, and quite frankly only serves those wishing to gain from it. And boy have they gained. Which is not the average Jewish person. It's come at their expense. So the press gave out 2 names, but the New York media has identified them as David Anderson and Francine Graham. And sources told NBC that Anderson was a follower of the Black Hebrew Israelite movement. Oops. Remember, this was an attack on a Jewish kosher restaurant or shop. And yet the people who were doing the shooting were Black Hebrew Israelites, whose believers say that they are the true descendants of the ancient Israelites. Oh dear. Please explain to me how Jews killing Jews is anti-Semitism. Or why? So who are these people? Well, they're also known as Black Hebrews, African Hebrew Israelites, and the Hebrew Israelites. And the movement consists of diverse groups called camps of people mostly of black African ancestry. And the primary doctrine they have in common is that they believe that they are the descendants of the ancient Israelites. Now, most followers themselves only use the term Hebrew Israelites, since the movement also includes Latino members, although the Latino ones have lesser standing. Racism inside a racist group. Oh dear. Now, the Black Hebrews adhere in varying degrees to the religious beliefs and practices of mainstream Judaism, but are not accepted as Jews by the Jewish community. Class systems inside religion. Don't you just love it? Not. Now, many Black Hebrews consider themselves and not mainstream Jews to be the only authentic descendants of the ancient Israelites. Really. So there you have it. The media pushed it as an attack on Jewish people. Anti-Semitism, they called it. But it was Hebrews killing Hebrews, which was not what was portrayed in the media. It certainly wasn't in the headline, because that doesn't fit the media spin machine, is why. And this has gone beyond the joke now, and the damage it's doing to the Jewish people is enormous. Their whole existence is based on some fake books eons ago, which is an anti-human book, make no mistake about that. a book that treats over 98% of the world's populace as pieces of shit under their shoe and have no value. They can't even be equals within their own groups. And it's not something conducive to harmony to all peoples, and has been found out not conducive to the Jewish people either. The Zionist element have done largely untold and catastrophic damage to the world's populace, and they roll on largely unhindered because they're setting the rules of engagement. Like you can't question the 6 million or the Holocaust. Do people stop and think of that and wonder why the contradictory nature of that ruling? On the one hand, you can't discuss what happened to the Jews. On the other hand, you have it rammed down your throat at an increasing level in movies, newspapers, songs, TV shows, literature and the media. It's a case of copy and repeat again, isn't it? Just listen to what we are telling you, but never question it. Well, the truth never fears investigation. These black Hebrew Israelites are the Kali Ma worshippers, migrated out of India into America and mixed with the indigenous tribes. This is how and why Native Americans obtained the name Indians. These are the sub-grey race, mix of people we covered in the From Russia with Love series, and anyone declaring themselves part of or the 12 or 13 tribes of Israel is neglecting what that group really stands for. Sacrifice and genocide that goes back tens of thousands of years. It is not the badge of honour on a human level so many ascribe to. Last piece before a music break. I've been seeing a plethora of TV adverts with this guy popping up at regular intervals. Thomas Farr Steyer is an American billionaire, hedge fund manager, philanthropist, environmentalist, liberal activist and fundraiser. And he is a candidate for the 2020 Democratic Party presidential primaries, as his plethora of TV adverts suggest. But let's look more closely, shall we? Who is the philanthropist who takes on rogue bankers and builds his own bank? Well, Steyer is the founder and former co-senior managing partner of Farallon Capital and the co-founder of One California Bank, which became through merger Beneficial State Bank, which is an Oakland-based community development bank. Not developing our community, as we'll find out. And Farallon Capital manages $20 billion in capital for institutions and high net worth individuals. So it's not for the community at all, it's for the elites then, and not what he was stating. The firm's institutional investors include college endowments and foundations, and since 1986 Steyer has been a partner and a member of the executive committee of Hellman and Friedman, which is a San Francisco-based $8 billion private equity firm. Vulture capitalist, then. In 2010, Steyer and his wife signed the Giving Pledge to donate half of their fortune to charity during their lifetime. And in 2012, he sold his stake in and retired from Farallon Capital and switching his focus to politics and the environment. And he launched Next Gen America, which is a non-profit organisation that supports progressive positions on climate change, immigration, healthcare and education. All sounds very good. Tired of bankers and give back to the community, he says in the adverts. But we've seen these people before and their promises, like Jared Rand and Procter & Gamble, and yet it never leads to anything or anywhere. Now, Mr. Steyer is a product of Yale. He then went to work for JP Morgan and then on to Stanford. Not a triumvirate that would inspire most people to believe that he's a man of the people. He was also at the helm of as the hedge fund that purchased nearly $90 million of Corrections Corporation of America stock, which is a trading platform for enslaved slave prisoners. Yes, he bought the prisoner stocks. Man of the people. In August 2010, him and his wife, like I said, signed on to the Giving Pledge, which was an initiative of Bill Gates and Warren Buffett. And the pledge urges individuals and families to give at least half their wealth to charitable causes during their lifetime. Pull the other one, it's got balls on. Those charities are New World Order elite slush fund based programs. That's all they are. Steyer has been compared and contrasted with the Koch brothers, billionaire businessmen who engage in extensive political activity, and has been viewed as a Koch adversary. A further indictment that. Steyer raised money for Hillary Clinton and hosted a fundraiser on her behalf at his Burlingame home. Steyer contributed $87 million in funds exclusively to the Democratic Party candidates during the 2016 election. Oh dear, he funds psychopathic kiddie fiddlers then. Beginning in October of 2017, Steyer spent $10 million for a television ad campaign advocating the impeachment of President Donald Trump, and more on a digital ad campaign to call for Trump's impeachment. The Need to Impeach campaign led to speculation that Steyer was planning a run for California governor or California senator in 2018, although he did not do so. Yet in March 2018, Steyer launched a 30-city town hall tour going into the fall election season, and the campaign is stated to amass that an amazing repeating figure of close to 6 million petitioners. And there is your clue of what's coming next. Because Tom Steyer was born not in California, but in New York, and born to Jewish parents. 6 million petition signatures. Yeah, right. It's just another of these vulture capitalists like Kushner, Rand, Procter & Gamble and David Rothschild, all saying they're for communities and the people. They're all snakes selling snake oil. Slippery as heck with their words, but their actions are far different. And if they were different, why haven't they given to the People's Club? They all know who we are and who we're connected to. We're going to have a music break now, which will put us into the final piece. Hi all, and welcome to the final piece of tonight's show. Life in their world is like a moving elevator going down. whilst you are going up. In what is classed as the wrong way, but it's not. It's heavy going, tiring, lonely, and at times all-consuming. People and life are all passing you by as time dissolves around you, as more and more of them take the down elevator. Their world makes little to no sense anymore, and it's a battle of inner strength and your core essence to hold on to your wits and sensibility and never waver off your path. All are being tested now, and patience will be the virtue in dealing with this next phase. It will not get better for them, and it will get worse as they flail about looking to put their masks back on. There is no more masks. Exposure themselves is inevitable. Reaction formation is their modus operandi, and we have to step back and disengage. Let them flail. They have to realise where they're at and where they're heading. No one is to blame except them. They had and made a choice based in ignorance. Let's hold hands over our ears and go la 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 la. Was but a brief interlude. That option is also now gone. The messages and information will ring loud and clear in the future. It will not go away. What is the future? Everything that is in front of you. As you walk forward, you're heading into the future. Look behind you or walk backwards. It is the past. Standing still is not the now either, as you're always in motion. Motion is time and space, and yet can be argued it is neither also. You are always moving, you just don't perceive it that way. Let the past go. It serves us no purpose now. Too much has been dealt with. Too much has been exposed now. It's time to be with the vision of going forward than going into the past. That past provides insights to protect and envision our future, but it needs not to be a tool to mire ourselves down with. By going back to try and change the past and subsequently try to alter the future, this was our biggest mistake. We have to observe the past from a place of neutral, not active or reactive, assess it, develop hindsight, and bring it to the now for assessment. Learn the lessons and release it. Then go forward from the here and now to create the different future, not the past. The past is not in the future. We are going out of the loops. That is why it was your role to clear your bloodline, so they are not burdened in the next phase. For many, the slate needed to be cleaned, not by reset, but by hard work and endeavour. In a completely separate analogy than the elevator piece, the saying what goes up must come down. But what comes down has a missing space time currently. This can be tested by yourself. You will see, or as the case may be, you won't see it briefly. No, I will not be answering to explain that. The voyage of discovery is far better than the revealing. It just requires you to think. This has been the Truth, Honour and Integrity Show. My name's Thomas Williams. Bye for now.